Well, I guess it's time to move on to the next subject. We've seen how a high volume premium protein like salmon is DACing tariffs, but the story looks kind of different when you talk about tilapia, a value species, and far more sensitive to cost inflation. Let's shift to tilapia now. What's the latest on tariff developments out of China, and how are U.S. wholesale prices reacting?
Yeah, so Chinese tilapia has faced one of the most aggressive tariff escalations of any seafood product, having entered 2025 with an already 25% Section 301 tariff. We saw escalations in February and in March and in April of this year, encroaching on an almost 200% tariff rate, which would have killed any sort of trade coming into the US. But in May, we reached a trade agreement that brought those levels down to 55%, which they still stand at today. But that deal expires this November. Without it, tariffs automatically jump back to triple digits, which is unsustainable for a value finfish item or any item for that matter. But these tariff swings had a big direct impact on pricing behavior. The first half of the year, you can see from this chart, is that U.S. wholesale tilapia prices moved higher as importers bought aggressively ahead of expected tariff increases. Prices peaked in late spring, but then began retreating as demand slowed. Inventories built up and buyers shifted to a wait-and-see mode. You can see on the screen, current wholesale prices are steady, sitting roughly 25 cents below the levels that we were at a year ago. That's from oversupply and cautious demand. They've overshadowed that tariff-driven cost inflation. So despite tariffs, the market hasn't really surged because the U.S. is so oversupplied at the moment. I do want to peek quickly at what's happening on the ground in China to offer a little bit more insight there. These are raw material pricing from major producing regions like Hainan, Guangxi, and Guangdong, and they've been under pressure. You can see that steep drop in prices as of recent. So producers have reduced operations and farmers have cut stocking levels because margins are near break-even levels, and those farm gate prices have dramatically weakened. On the import side, arrivals are still strong, up about 23% year-to-date through July compared to last year. Some of that increase came from pre-tariff stocking earlier in the year, and it continues to weigh on the market today. So we're in a position where tariffs are high, cost of production remains high, but selling prices have fallen. Margins at origin are under severe pressure, but U.S. importers are not willing to bring in more product and take advantage of the lower replacement costs because the inventories here in the U.S. are already heavy. Just earlier this month, President Trump floated the idea of a 100% tariff on Chinese goods, which sent another shockwave through the market. He later softened that stance, but the uncertainty alone is enough to freeze forward buying activity. But President Trump is in Asia this week, and we're all waiting with bated breath to hear of any new developments. We do know that U.S. Treasury Secretary indicated that trade talks with China were progressing and suggested that an additional 100% tariff scheduled for November was now effectively off the table. While that does not represent an official cancellation or confirmation, the remarks were widely interpreted that that was a signal that tariff escalation is unlikely in the near term, but, you know, anything goes. So waiting for that final confirmation there.
Now, I know that frozen tilapia from China is like the lion's share of the tilapia market, but
yes,
what about fresh tilapia? How are they faring with Brazil's 50% tariff?
So the Senate just passed a bill to block that 50% tariff from Brazil. The development's still very fresh, and while that's not translating into any immediate price movement, it's the first meaningful step in unwinding that 50% tariff on Brazilian tilapia, that fresh tilapia. That tariff has been a major driver of elevated fresh tilapia prices in the U.S. So the Senate vote is introducing a sense of cautious optimism, which is very welcomed at the moment.